Good morning, everyone. So my name is Stephen, and you're all very welcome to this morning's webinar, which is called Being Kind Online. So we're hosting today's event as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, where the theme for the week is kindness. So today we're very excited to be joined by a number of colleagues. So my role is really to just introduce everyone, and then we'll hopefully have a really great conversation through for the full duration of the hour. So today we wanted to keep it very informal and very conversational, and really just to explore some of the both positives and maybe challenges associated with our online presence, and particularly in recent times where we've had to really accelerate some of the ways in which we communicate and connect with each other on a virtual basis due to the COVID pandemic. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague John, and he will then introduce our other guests for today. But we are particularly welcome to see Matthew, Annette, and Stephen. So you're all very welcome. John will give you a bit more information about the chat box feature, so you can use that throughout today's session to ask us any questions you have. So it'll be live for the full duration. We'll be able to moderate your questions as they come in. So if there is something that just pops in, just pop it in the chat box and we'll have a really good conversation. So hope you're excited. Thanks, folks.
All right, thanks for that, Stephen. And welcome everyone to our webinar today on Being Kind Online. So my name's John Finnegan. I'm a Safe and Healthy Relationships Wellbeing Advisor here at Queen's. I suppose part of my role is to support students who've been impacted by bullying, harassment, and that invariably includes online as well. Another aspect of my role is to promote healthy relationships among students. And therefore, I think kind of these opportunities to have conversations about being kind, how we can support others, and how we can help our mental health is just really important. Format for today's session is, first of all, we're going to have a short discussion with our wonderful panel. So we have Matthew Thompson here, we have Annette Kelly, and we've got Steve McNeil as well. So please keep your questions coming in. We're going to have a question and answer session then afterwards. And if you use the function on the chat box function, you can send in your questions through that. Okay, we're also using the hashtag kindness matters today, and also you can tweet using hashtag lovequb. So feel free to tweet during the webinar. Just in relation to kind of content warning, so we are going to be talking about obviously kindness, but when we come to that, we can also talk about harassment. So it's just to be mindful of that. We will be providing support numbers at the end for everyone. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to have a chat just with Matthew. So Matthew, you set up Best of Belfast, which is a podcast in 2017. Do you want to tell us just a wee bit about your reasons for kind of establishing that?
Yeah, totally. So I, like a lot of people in Northern Ireland, grew up with a fairly unkind opinion and perspective of this wonderful and unusual place that we call home. And, we've grown up with the local media, and we've grown up with us and them, we've grown up with bickering and all sorts of stuff. And our kind of response to that has been a lot of sarcasm. It's been a lot of joking around. And really, I left Northern Ireland because I was like, this place is crap. There's no opportunity here. I just can't wait to leave, get out of this small town country, whatever cliche you want to say. And so I did leave, and I moved away when I was 18. I went all over the place, but kind of ended up washed up in New York City for 3 years, like most cliches do. And long kind of roundabout story. I'd love to talk to Stephen afterwards, because I too met a German woman and ended up marrying her, and we moved back to Northern Ireland. And when I moved back to Northern Ireland, I all of a sudden just totally small world, fell in love with this place, and fell in love with my home and felt really reconnected to it. And so kind of set off on this quest to celebrate Northern Ireland, to showcase that there are amazing things happening here. And once you kind of start to peek behind the curtain, you realize that there are people who are living here and from here, living overseas, that are just doing insane things that if I hadn't known about whenever I was younger, I definitely would have felt more connected to this place. So it's a weekly podcast. So far, we've interviewed over 150 people. You've got the big hitters like Gary Lightbody and Foy Vance and good old Mary Peters and all that sort of crowd. And then we really love sharing the stories of kind of underdogs and hidden gems, like 91-year-old women who still do the park run and all that sort of stuff. But very relaxed, sort of hour and a half long interviews. And each one is his own kind of self-contained story of someone's life. And it's a real privilege to share that with people.
And so that's about showing kind of the positivity of Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Totally. That's what it says on the tin. Showing the best of Belfast.
Okay. Do you find it difficult as a culture, as a society? We're not really hardwired to kind of talk about ourselves and talk in kind of positive terms at times.
Yeah, so, we've all kind of grown up with the backdrop of, like, look at him, he's getting too big for his boots. And, we're afraid of celebrating the things that we've done and even expressing the things that we want. We kind of have this quite tribal mentality of you have to stay low. You may have heard your granny or granda say things like, you got to keep your head down. You got to just keep moving, don't stand out from the crowd. And that has kind of been hardwired and woven into kind of the fabric of the Northern Irish mindset. And so, yes, in some ways, there is the perceived challenge that you're going to be going up against that. But actually, in reality, I found that people are so open to it that there is such a strong movement within Northern Ireland and beyond of actually, yeah, this place is great. We do need to move on. And actually, even before the Troubles, and, there was a Northern Ireland before the Troubles, and there was a Northern Ireland that was thriving before the Troubles. But, I'm a child of the Good Friday Agreement. I'm, 25, was born in 1995. And so I've grown up with a certain slant and a certain color. And now kind of later in my life, later in my, mid-20s, I have really been benefiting from seeing how colorful and how wonderful this part of the world really is. And once you give people the opportunity, once you create a platform, and once you have 30 odd people who are willing to come on and talk about themselves, it kind of just seems, oh, well, if everyone else is doing this, well, then why the heck not? So yeah.
Absolutely. So Matthew, the theme I suppose for this week is around kindness. So what would you say kindness means to yourself as a concept?
I think kindness primarily, I see it as something that starts with yourself and something that starts kind of in between your own two ears. And so for me, I suppose kindness kind of has manifested in my life as showing grace to myself. And what I mean by that is like explicitly is, I think because of some of the cultures and kind of hang-ups of our past, a lot of us have grown up with quite regimented upbringings.
Yes.
And I'm all for discipline, trust me. Like I'm like discipline's freedom, discipline's important. But I think there's kind of been this environment of shame that has been developed of if you step out of the line, it's not good, and it's not good to the point where actually you need to be shown shame. And I think I internalized that a lot growing up. And so but at the same time, had these ridiculously high expectations for my life and was brought up in the generations like, yeah, we're going to go change the world and we're millennials and look what tech's doing. And, it's going to completely bring about this utopia we've been all waiting for, and it's going to solve all of our problems. And then, falling short of those high standards time and time and time again. And the response to that was being more like a judge to yourself rather than a coach. And one of my previous guests, they kind of showed the difference between a judge mentality and a coach mentality. He says Northern Ireland's very good at a judge mentality, like, how dare you, you made this mistake and now you must pay the price. We're very justice orientated, which is a beautiful thing if it's used in the right way. But the coach mentality is slightly a bit more American. And I suppose I brushed against that quite a lot whenever I was away. And it's more of a, okay, you've made a mistake. No sweat. You're going to get it next time. Let's see what you can change. Let's see what we can do differently next time. And so learning to kind of point that lens into myself has been super beneficial, because at the same time, people from Northern Ireland are incredibly compassionate. We're really serving and a really, really caring community. And I think the COVID crisis has really shown that, people are really, really taking care of each other, but we are slow to do it to ourselves. And so that is kind of rambly nutshell of what I think kindness is. Okay,
perfect. And then just Matthew, I suppose, online we see a lot of positives, as well as kind of negatives. Do you see how that kind of impacts in terms of your work, in terms of the podcast as well?
Give me a wee bit more. What exactly do you mean?
Just around, we see a lot of negativity as well, especially in social media. In terms of the kind of the podcast, would you see that yourself?
So I have a bit of a theory of why media in general tends to spin towards negativity. And it actually kind of, if you can bear with me for a second, requires us to kind of turn our entrepreneurial business heads on for a second. And really simply, kind of the traditional business model of media is built on advertising, and advertising is built on scale. So if you want to make money on an advertising model, you need to have as many eyes as possible or as many thumbs as possible scrolling through your work. And as we've seen happen extremely quickly, this has resulted in a very tabloidized, exaggerated, and predominantly outrage-based sort of media. And so it has been interesting to see even how COVID has been reported on, even by major publications. For some reason, in our in our kind of human mind, fear and anxiety spreads far, far faster than kindness. And it's probably because those are the mechanisms that are inside us to try to survive and protect ourselves and protect our loved ones. And so because media relies on scale, loads and loads and loads of scale, and quantity, I think it's set up a bit of a bias where negativity actually flourishes more online. You see that in local newspapers online. You see that in big corporations like Twitter. I mean, we could spend a whole hour talking about Twitter and kind of this real nasty kind of like pool of poison that has just kind of erupted. But the reason is because it spreads, and it spreads faster than the kindness. So for me, definitely and I'm sure Annette will find this as well, like the bigger scale of content, whenever you put something positive out there, it won't necessarily get as much traction as something utterly scandalous. But what it will do is that it will connect with the right people. It will connect with a small group of people, and those people will continue to continue to invest, because it's a breath of fresh air, because actually we need this and because we want this. And so I see not necessarily a massive widespread shift towards positivity. I see it more in the small and the niche and the loyal communities that are erupting online, who have stepped back and said, whoa, like enough is enough. Like, I don't want to feed my mind with this anymore. I don't want to feed my eyes with this anymore. I don't want to contribute to this culture. And I believe there's a better way. And so that's kind of what I am kind of given my life to at the minute, is at least locally trying to create a better way and a better channel. And I'm so excited to hear what Annette has to say about some of those things as well.
And absolutely, and that pushback is really important, and like you say about media and news, when you turn on the news, quite often it is negativity, and it's looking for those kind of positive angles and for those to kind of come through the news. So I suppose just moving on then, Annette, so you'd set up, it was actually a Facebook page, isn't that right?
That's right, in 2015. I suppose I've always been a lover of quotes. Would I live by the quotes every day? Absolutely not. Positivity isn't something that really comes naturally to me. It's something that I have to search for and claw for daily, and I found quotes and words were the way forward. At school, I always had a love for literature, and I suppose during my years as a teacher, I was just trying to navigate my way through life in my mid-20s, and I decided to start up a Facebook page, not expecting it to be where it is today. We've nearly, maybe between Instagram and Facebook, maybe 500,000 followers. Followers was never the intention. A business was never the intention. Growth was never the intention. I just wanted to put out these words on a private page that wasn't my personal page. And it started basically from probably me not being in the greatest place myself mentally, but I was finding strength from words. And I know words have the power to hurt, or words can heal. And, in relation back to what Matthew said, so it's kind of an inside job. It's what goes on between your two ears and in your mind, and that kind of pours out to other people. So, if you're being kind to yourself, then it can pour out to others if you let it. Little Penny Thoughts was something that started, I was anonymous for a long time. Is probably very backward about it, very shy, not ashamed, but paranoid what other people would think. I lived in a rural area at the time, and a bit like Emmerdale. It's my home place. But I love it. But sometimes if you do things outside the box, like look at your own, what she at,
Yes.
and it's kind of I had to get very uncomfortable to be comfortable. And now there's been such a shift in this past 5 years, towards positivity and quotes and online support, and even people talking about their mental health and their emotions. I see that slowly but surely becoming the norm, which is great because it's helping to break stigma. And I love hearing people's stories, and I would support people that maybe start their own blogs or their own passion projects, no matter what area it's in. It's great to see that there is a platform for so many people now. And it doesn't even have to be online. There's lots of great things happening offline as well, which is important. Not everything you do has to go online, and that's something that I'm learning as well.
But you can certainly see how that resonates with people. The fact that you've got so many people wanting to be part of that, and wanting to kind of join in and and share as well. I think that really shows that there's a need for that.
I often get some people ask me, where did the idea come from, or how did it grow so fast? And there was no plan here. It was very organic. The words resonated with people, and the likes and the shares and the tags, it caused a ripple effect, and little penny thoughts grew legs of its own. And it's something that I'm grateful for. If people are getting any good out of it, some days maybe the words will click, and other days maybe not, but that's people's opinions, and that's okay as well. And I've learned over the years to be able to take criticism as well as encouragement. That's something that I've really, really battled with, that out of the hundreds of comments that I would have got maybe in a day or a week, it was that one comment that would have initially got me down, and I would have felt bad and maybe silenced me for a while.
Absolutely. And I suppose, in terms of those kind of thoughts and those kind of quotes, it's back to kind of what Matthew was saying. It's individual. It's kind of what's very important to you and what you kind of take out of that. So yeah, but absolutely, more generally speaking, if we get a negative comment, we're going to kind of focus on that. We're kind of hardwired. Yes, rather than the 100 positive comments that you've got. Just in terms of kind of, sorry, go ahead, Annette.
Just the word troll is through about a lot online, and it's whether you take offense. You can choose to take offense to something, or try and think, what, it's not worth your energy sometimes, getting too emotionally involved with maybe a throwaway comment that maybe wasn't intentional, to offend you, but it's how we choose to react to things that I've learned is the game changer in terms of surviving in the online world.
Absolutely. That's our first tip of today, and we're going to have many more. I just wanted to ask you, Annette, I was asking Matthew there about kindness. In terms of kindness is for yourself, what's kind of influenced your life around kind of kindness?
My
and
parents,
your work obviously as well.
My parents have been a massive influence for me in terms of how I'm very grateful to have been brought up with kindness in the home, and that I instilled from me, and from a young age, that if you've nothing nice to say nothing at all. And that's hard, because sometimes you've plenty of negative things to say, because you're only human. And you can't be positive all the time, and you can't be happy all the time. But I think what Daddy's angle always was that you don't know what other people are going through. So be kind wherever possible, and it's always possible. So I kind of would have modeled my behavior off my parents. They never gossiped a lot. They also they loved celebrating other people's wins, and that's something that I do. And I'm glad that I don't get jealous very quickly. Maybe when I was a teenager I would have, but now, like as an adult, I love to see other people doing well. I love to hear feel good stories. I empathise with people that are going through a difficult time, and I do think that a lot of kindness was instilled from me from a young age, from my parents, and that I'm very grateful for, because not everybody has the home environment that nurtures that. So we have to be mindful of that also.
And I definitely think there's something in that you're saying, where at times, we would actually be able to reflect and think before we kind of commented or, made a remark. Whereas online, it's quite often it's 24/7 and it's immediacy, and at times there isn't that thought that kind of goes in. So you might make a comment and then, okay, you can kind of go back and take it back. But it's, once it's out there, it's difficult to kind of retrieve that.
That's it. And you're either, feeding the fire. Matthew talked about Twitter there. Twitter is just a different ballgame. It's something that I don't engage in a lot.
Okay.
But, maybe Facebook and Instagram are more of a safe space for me. But the nature of my work, thankfully, I try to surround myself with good vibes and, feel good stories and, creating a support system. And I always wanted Little Penny Thoughts to be a safe space for people to come and go as they wish, as such. And I don't really tolerate sometimes things would kick off in the comment section.
Yes.
But I would deal with that privately. I would maybe talk to the person via a DM, but remove the comment so that it doesn't feed into the public domain. And it's something I'm just very conscious of, because words can trigger people in different ways and everyone has an opinion. And I just try to moderate it as best I can on a daily basis. So, I don't want to offend everybody, but the thing is, everybody does have an opinion. And this is, these scenarios don't happen very often, but I just have to be vigilant and aware.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's back to that debate around kind of free speech, but then it's when it's impacting on other people and your behaviours, having an impact and, potentially a detrimental impact as well on other people. So absolutely. Thanks very much, Annette. So just moving on to Steve then. So Steve, you're a social worker in Northern Ireland. And I suppose in your line of work, you may see a different side of kind of kindness, particularly online. So you, as part of your role within the Southeastern Domestic Sexual Violence Partnership, you deliver training on technology-assisted abuse. So we're going to kind of touch on kind of the online side of things, harassment and things like that a bit. But first of all, I just wanted to kind of ask you the same questions as Matthew and Annette, just around kind of kindness as well, and what that kind of concept kind of means to yourself.
Well, I suppose from the point of view of the work that I'm doing, the kindness that I get from friends, but also the colleagues that I work with, it has been an inspiration for me in the role that I've been playing. I've developed my knowledge and understanding over the past number of years, really with the freedom of my manager to pursue something like this, something that has been different within the context of social services, looking at the role of technology when it comes to child protection, and that's within my day-to-day job as the child sexual exploitation social worker for the Southeastern Trust. But then also in terms of my role in the Sexual and Domestic Violence Partnership, where I've been able to work with partner agencies around what that means for a person in a relationship when coercion and control is enhanced almost by the abuse of a person via technology. I found it very interesting when Matthew was saying about that aspect of shame, and how that bleeds into everything. It becomes very easy for people to do. I think you'd call it like the internet pylon of just seeing someone and attacking a position because you slightly disagree with it. I read, it was John Ronson wrote a book a number of years back called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," about people's experiences having their lives, literally torn apart within minutes of making a post on Twitter. You know, so the support that I've got from colleagues has just shown kindness, and I try and put that out in what I do in terms of the protection of young people, in terms of the support that I provide with the staff that I work with. And I think it's an ongoing challenge, especially in these times, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
People, this current situation, it brings out the worst in people, but it genuinely brings out some amazing responses. You know, the kindness that I've been shown by people supporting me. I was saying to everyone before we came on air, I was stranded in South Africa for a number of weeks at the outbreak, and friends and family looking after the house, looking after the animals that we own, you know, just incredible kindness throughout. So it's something that I try to live by in my role and in my life.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And just kind of get on then to talk about online harassment. So we have a slide here that we're going to share. But when people talk about online harassment, it's almost like an umbrella generic term, and it covers you know, a range of different things, and hopefully everyone can kind of see that. So you were talking there about the pylon kind of situation as well, Steve.
Yeah. Just like I just realized that it was above me there when I started reading. So John Ronson's book, You've Been Publicly Shamed, a very interesting read. I do feel that we have, like, in terms of that internet pylon, we do have the ability to challenge that. I feel, you know, to accept or to say that we don't accept that as a response, as a reaction for minor infractions, to see that that people's good intentions get torn down. Like within the context of sexual domestic violence, the Southeastern Sexual Domestic Violence Partnership, it was about 2 years ago, we had a guy come over from the States by the name of Jackson Capps, who had developed what he called the bystander approach to domestic abuse, literally challenging negative attitudes where they appear, instead of staying quiet, actually saying something, taking that forward, and making those challenges.
And I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's about calling out behaviour, and particularly when you're online. Now that can be difficult when it is a pylon, when there is a lot of people, and sometimes, you know, particularly on Twitter, you know, it's anonymous as well, so you don't know exactly who you're dealing with. But definitely that concept of calling out the behaviour, yeah, it's important.
Yeah. And within the context of my role within the domestic abuse, within Sexual and Domestic Violence Partnership, you know, we're looking at the current levels of legislation. So up until, well, at the present point, we are still working to the Protection of Harassment Order within Northern Ireland. We know that that is not fit for purpose in the modern era, and we do have the Domestic Abuse and Family Proceedings Bill currently out for consultation. Now, I have been going through that in this past week or two, because comments have to be back on that in the next fortnight, and it's clear that technology it hasn't been included in it in the way that I thought it should be. So, you know, taking that forward, looking at coercion and control online, looking at what that means within the context of abusive relationships. We look, you know, you look down through the background here. So, you know, you look at cyber stalking, that sort of a thing. You look at that within the context of relationships, and it's about I suppose we look at supporting people through situations like this. There's some really good work, and I have forgotten her name, but I have this listed out. I was over in February in Birmingham and met with Dr. Emma Short. She's the director of the National Centre for Cyberstalking Research, and got some really good insight into that. I also met with Professor Elizabeth Yardley, who has done some really interesting pieces on I suppose the idea of omnipresence within an abusive relationship, and that technology can be used essentially to track every movement that a person would have within the context of that relationship. So we're trying to raise awareness around that. We're also trying to look at how we support people to ensure that they know what is happening with their devices.
So there's an element of education around that, Steve?
There's an element of education, of awareness raising, that sort of a thing. But the kindness aspect to it as well is to ensure that people's mental health, whilst they're online, is supported.
Absolutely. And then just finally, Steve, in terms of kind of, I suppose, general tips, and we will come to this at the end as well, but for anyone who's experiencing, where that kindness moves along that spectrum to unkindness or potential abuse, what would you say would be the best thing to do in those circumstances?
It's seek support. It's talk. Don't internalize this. Make contact with people. You have trusted people that you can go to. You have support services. As a student within QUB, you have support services there. There are people out there who are willing to talk, who are willing to listen, and who are willing to provide support. They're out there, so please, please, please approach them.
Brilliant. Absolutely. And we will, at the end, like I say, be sharing some of those supports as well. So just to move it on then to questions from our audience here. And I will, well, first of all, we have a question for Matthew. We've got Matthew here. We do indeed.
Hello.
So let me just scroll down here. So Matthew, what challenges, if any, did you face when stepping away from social media and your 50,000 followers? What was the catalyst for making that decision, and what have you learned?
Okay, so first thing, the catalyst was, I suppose, primarily the realization that you have a choice whenever it comes to social media, which sounds like the most stupid, like primary school thing to say, but I have kind of just always grown up and just moved on to the next thing where it's like, oh my goodness, there's MySpace, and oh, what's this thing, Bebo? And oh, Bebo sucks now, I got to get Facebook, and then got to get Instagram, and it just kind of keeps going and going and going, and you don't consciously think about what these things add or take away from your life. You kind of just go along with the flow. And it just hit me. I was like, oh my word, like you don't actually need this. Or at the very fundamental, you don't need to check it every day. You don't need to check it every hour. You don't need to have a public facing account. You don't need to be on everything and be always on it and be everywhere all at once. And it's funny, like I always kind of go back to, we just moved to Dromore, and, I'm looking out over the wee village, and I'm like, I always think about what was Dromore like 100 years ago. And I can tell you one thing, and it's Sally, who is sitting in her house right now, didn't have to worry about what someone in Timbuktu was saying about her tweet. And we've opened ourselves up to the whole world without ever realizing that actually you don't have to do this. And so I am a bit of a human guinea pig. Like I love kind of self-experimenting and trying new things and seeing what happens. So I just made a decision. It's like, look, I'm going to go off this and see what happens. I'm going to make a hard jump and, delete my accounts so that you can't restore them with one click and everything like that. And at the end of the day, look, I can always go back on it. I can always build up what I have again. But the catalyst was, I suppose, to be kind to myself, to protect my own mental health. I spend most of my days either writing or podcasting with people. That's the two kind of bits of my work. And both of those things are more conducive with a quiet mind and with a slower pace of life, because it allows me to be fully present with the person that I'm talking to, or it allows me to be fully concentrated on the piece of work that I'm currently writing. And I just realized that, all of the benefits that social media provided in my life, I can either do without, or I can access them without it being a huge part of my life. And what I always say to people is, I now have, I made the big step and went back on WhatsApp. Whoa. But I only have it on my computer. And now WhatsApp purely exists for group chats and friends from overseas. In other words, things that don't need my immediate decision right away. So, I just this morning sent, in a group chat, it's like, hey, should we think about hanging out next week? Now that the lockdown's starting to lift. But I don't need to get those responses right in the middle of this webinar. And I realized to kind of divide and filter things out between what's urgent and what's important. And very rarely is the urgent important. And what I mean by that is you can go on social media once a week and see that amazing engagement photo and see that newborn photo and see, all the really important stuff that you want to see. Or you could go on every single hour and just be scrolling through like the bottom of the news feed, the bottom of the pile, all the stuff you don't really care about. And so I always say to people, like, you don't have to be extreme. You don't have to completely go off it. I've done it. It's been really beneficial for me. And it's allowed me to connect on a deeper level with a smaller group of people, which I feel like a lot of us are kind of longing for in our lives. But it's purely because I just don't have the self-control. And so I'm better either on or off. And so for me, I took myself off. I do not regret it in the slightest. And to be honest, it's even for the podcast, even for my work, it's actually added this whole new level of richness, because all of that extra time, all of that extra kind of cognitive load and brain power, I've just been able to divert into taking care of myself, connecting with the people that truly matter in my life, and focusing on the craft and the impact that I want to leave in the world. So that's kind of general sort of responses to that.
So you don't miss it then?
No, I don't. Like a hole in the head.
Well, interestingly, just when you were kind of talking there, we would see students kind of coming through Wellbeing, who would be struggling, online with addiction as well. Where it gets to the stage where, it gets beyond, and it's almost, I suppose that's a question for the panel. What's a reasonable usage in terms of kind of going online? How do you reduce your anxiety? People talking about, they get up first thing in the morning before they get breakfast, they're straight to their phone, they're straight to their laptop or iPad, to check that out.
I'll just jump in real quick, really simply. One question: is it using you or are you using it? And that answer will just give you everything that you need. And then from there, you can, we can talk about tips and how to have healthy relationships and stuff. But I think that's really where you need to start.
Okay.
Yeah, for me personally, I don't have the balance at all. And I'm sitting here in admiration of Matthew going, I want that. And I'm probably stuck between a rock and a hard place where I don't use my personal account as much as I used to. But in terms of my business account, I'm always keeping it updated. And I feel a wee bit of an obligation to do so. But with that, what other types of content am I feeding my brain with each day? And I'm totally overstimulated. And I think more so during lockdown, I've been on my phone a whole lot more. I've been on my gadgets a lot more, not being super productive, but it's gotten maybe the way of maybe my mission and my aim. And it's something that I've been thinking about this past few weeks of how, it's using me and I'm not using it. So I can openly admit that it's something that I would love to work on myself, stepping back, limiting the urgency to respond. As you say, Matthew, you're not always on tap. We're not robots, we're humans and we're not machines. And sometimes at the minute we feel programmed to get back to that WhatsApp, to return that phone call, to respond to that email, to like that comment, to reply. And it's just a never end, and it can frazzle your mind as an adult, never mind a young person. Everybody can be affected by being addicted to social media or screen time. So that's something that I'm definitely going forward. Post this pandemic, I want to definitely restructure how much time I use online.
Online. We all hear of that fear of missing out. I definitely do think it is something about compartmentalizing your life, especially at this point, to try and make sure that it isn't just every 2 minutes that you're checking something, you're looking for that latest update, has something changed, that you've got clear ideas of this is work time, this is leisure time, this is relaxed time. It can creep into absolutely everything. It's very easy just to sit there and have Twitter open and watch the feed just progress down through, or to look and see what's the latest stuff on Reddit, that sort of a thing. I think we have to be regimented about it, folks. It's too easy within the context of coronavirus to just spend your day looking at a screen. I find it work at the minute, where I used to have half an hour, 45 minutes between one meeting and the next, where I was driving to different facilities. This is my second appointment of the day. I've got one immediately following this, and I have another 2 this afternoon, and there was no way I was ever going to be able to make that in the old way. So I think for my work, I've got to be mindful of how much I'm putting on myself, but offline as well. Stuck in this pandemic, I've started reading books a lot more to try and limit my exposure to the internet. It's tough all around.
And funny, that's what I was going to say. We're living through a pandemic at the minute. We're probably online more than ever. So it is about how we manage our way through that. But also, I don't know if you've kind of noticed in terms of kindness. Have you noticed that we do seem to be a bit more kinder as a society? Kind of living through this. I know even just been out myself and meeting other people, well, socially distancing from other people, but people are saying hello to you that you don't even know. There just appears to be that kind of kindness. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I would have witnessed a lot of warmth, whether it's my weekly grocery shop, people, obviously within social distancing, but maybe giving you eye contact, looking up a wee bit more, and just kind of giving you that, smirk or grin. And even, there's a kind of because it's a collective experience, everyone's dealing with it in different ways, but it's very much collective. We're all going through it. I know everyone's circumstances are different, but kind of people have that glint in the eye, as if to say, isn't this strange? Or there is a sense of people maybe giving a wee bit more eye contact and a more sense of community, even online, through different initiatives and projects happening as well. It's great to see.
Well, that's it. The village that I live in, there is a small online community, a group through Facebook there, and they've really stepped up. Food parcels they are doing. Chemist runs, grocery runs for people, and I see it as well. Like I walk around the village. It's another one of the things that I try to do is to make sure it's a 2-mile loop around my village, and you're crossing the road to avoid people, but you're doing it with a smile on your face and saying hi to them as you're doing it. 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, you'd have been looked at as if you had 2 heads. But now, people are saying hi to you as you're genuinely trying to avoid them.
That's true. And it's interesting that we had to, be taken apart to come together. It's very surreal. It's surreal times, but as much sadness that has come from this, and a lot of people that are struggling, there's been a lot of good as well. And I think there is an element of people trying to be as kind as possible to each other, but it's important to turn that inward and be gentle and kind to yourself, because you're doing the best you can in a circumstance and situation that you've never experienced before. And
100%. 100%. People put a lot of pressure on themselves, and especially at this point as well. I think one of the things that I always try to think about is that idea of asking yourself continually, what if this turns out okay? What happens if your anxiety is for nothing? And trying to maintain that positivity and, I suppose, bring others along with it. So it doesn't cost anything to throw a smile out at someone as you're walking past them.
True.
And I suppose, Matthew, this a bit controversially, but can we ever be too kind?
I think to the extent that we become dishonest with people, I think that's a form of unkindness. Like, Sandra that goes on Britain Got Talent, and you say, "Oh, Sandra, why did nobody tell you, love? Like, why did your nearest and dearest not say that this was not a good idea?" I think that's probably a situation where your effort to be kind can be unkind. But I would say It's all about the relationship and the position you have with that person. So me being someone random guy on Twitter or Reddit, I have no right to tell Sandra she shouldn't have come and audition. But I think her friends and family had a real responsibility. So it's not that we need to go around policing other people, but I think part of being in a loving relationship with the community around us and the people around us is that we are actually honest and we are kind enough to let them know whenever something's not a good idea or they're doing something that's hurting themselves or other people.
Annette, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. There you can be too kind and you can be taken advantage of, and kindness can't be mistaken for weakness. People sometimes, when you're overly kind or overly caring, maybe they can, as I say, take advantage, but it's having boundaries, that I've personally learned myself, is that you can be kind and you can be authentic and you can be truthful, but you have to know your limits and that you can't pour from an empty cup. And when you're
Absolutely.
giving and caring, sometimes, and you're the soundboard, that can really, really affect you and drain you. And it happens, it builds up over the years. It's nothing just that happens suddenly. And it's something that you have to really check in with yourself, that am I having clear boundaries that people can, yes, come to me and I can support, but just be really, really careful that you're not being taken advantage of, because, kindness is free, but it's also, it takes sometimes a lot of energy to be consistently kind and caring and giving. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really good point. What Matthew was saying kind of earlier, kindness kind of comes from yourself. Initially, it's about being kind to yourself, but it's about recognizing as well that, we all have our limitations as well. And there is maybe times where we need to kind of pull back and ask for that support, as well. So it's a two-way process, but absolutely, I do think, we need to kind of just be mindful that we can burn ourselves out as well, Stephen, any thoughts on that yourself?
Too kind, I suppose. Yeah, like Matthew said, if it's false, I think honesty has to come with this as well. The honesty to A, challenge, or B, support someone. So yeah, it is something to bear in mind. Honesty is part of this, folks.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're kind of coming towards the end. The way I wanted to kind of finish was obviously for the audience to kind of take away some kind of tips, particularly when you're kind of online and you're trying to kind of look after yourself as well and look after your mental health online. So does anyone want to start with their kind of go-to tips?
Yeah, I would say you need to be kind enough to yourself to treat yourself like a human being, not like a machine. And, Stephen was touching on that earlier. And so I think one of the best things you can do for yourself is just to create a margin and a buffer at the start of the day and the end of your day. And so start small. It could be, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to give myself 30 minutes before I check my phone, before I kind of hop on the computer, and I'm going to give myself 30 minutes at the end of the day. And see if you do that combined with like a simple, like no screen upstairs policy in your home, that will have a humongous impact on your mental health and your family's mental health. If you have kids, it will protect your kids from a lot of things online as well. And it will try to cut off some of that isolation that can happen, even if you're living with roommates and living in community with each other. The second kind of wee tip that I would say is to batch your interactions online. And really simply, I'll give the example of email for that. So there's two ways to do email. You can check your email every 5 minutes and drop everything and go on and reply straight away. Or you can say, I'm going to check my email once a day. I'm going to respond to everything and the day's going to finish and the inbox is going to be cleared. Or maybe if you're like Stephen, where you need to be on your emails a bit more, you could say, I'm going to check it at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Or if you're a hermit like me, you say, I'm going to check it twice a week. And it's finding what works for you. It's being prepared to really test things and experiment and see what makes a difference in my life. But that idea of a margin and that idea of a buffer and having time just for you to do things that you enjoy, that's away from a screen, your sleep will get better, which has such a big impact, has potential for your relationships to get better, which has a huge impact. And I would always say as well, the third thing is it gives you that opportunity for some sort of a self-expression, whether it's a hobby, whether it's writing in a journal, whether it's playing a bit of music. And see, once you get kind of some of the monsters of your mind out and dump it onto a page, or, you know, express it in some sort of, you know, sport or whatever it is, it makes a huge impact. So those would be my kind of key takeaways.
I think that's really important, Matthew, particularly for students at the minute who, you know, are going to receive a lot of emails from lecturers, you know, from everyone really around Queen's. Same for staff as well, where we have that, you know, where we're working, and it's having those boundaries and not, you know, checking emails at 10 at night and doing those kind of things.
Yeah, it's the same with the news. You know, I mean, you can check the news every minute, or you can check the news once a day or once a week. You know, yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. And I like your point around sleep as well. I think that's, I'm guilty of that in myself, you know, where the advice is to kind of cut your screen time before kind of bed, you know, have that kind of quiet mind, do a bit of meditation, those kind of things. So very practical kind of tips, really important. Annette, yourself then?
Yeah, just going back to what Matthew said about, you know, that in the morning time, maybe not just jumping on social media straight away and scrolling. Before your feet hit the floor, you could have invited about 100 to 200 people into your room, you know, their lives and their energies, when you're witnessing what they're doing or what they're having for breakfast and things like that. It can really impact maybe the flow of your morning. And something that I like to hit home is that comparison is a thief of joy. You know, we have to really focus on our own lives before we look into the lives of others. And sometimes we compare our lives to someone else's highlight reel online. It's very important. It is a highlight reel and maybe people's best bits, and it's not always the reality. Sometimes that can have a negative impact on our feelings. Maybe we don't feel good enough, we don't feel adequate enough. And it can be the simple thing of, you know, what breakfast they're having, or what car they drive, or, you know, their home setup and things like that. It's the wee things that you don't realise that have an impact on you, that you're absorbing every day, especially first thing in the morning. You know, are you living life through your own lens or your phone lens? So it's very important to take a step back and to try and monitor your usage time, especially in the mornings. Another thing is that be aware of who you're following and what you're following, and don't be afraid to do a wee, clean out or a clear out of maybe what you're following or what you're witnessing. You could not unfollow people, maybe mute people. That it's no offense to them, but maybe they're not adding value to your life. So we could do that, and also just try and not let social media take over, and that there's a life to be lived beyond the lens of your phone, as hard as it can be, because it's like can be attached to your hand a lot. And when the battery dies, you kind of can go into panic mode. But it's regaining that control, that you control it and it doesn't control you.
And I think that point around kind of pressure online, I think is really important. You know, even particularly at the start of, you know, the crisis, where people were, you know, doing lots of baking and different things, you know, and students kind of saying to me, I feel under pressure, I should be doing these things and I'm not, you know, so it's just about,
doesn't make you any less, doesn't make you any less productive or any less, you know, you're more than enough. And whether you bake or not, and you have to, you know, live life through your own lens and find joy in your day. And some of the best moments of my life aren't on social media, and that's something that I like to remind myself, that you don't have to put out everything to the world. You can keep moments private, and you can be as equally as successful and content.
It's back to that discipline as well, what Matthew was kind of talking about. Absolutely. And then Steve, just to finish with yourself then. So
I think privacy is the word that was mentioned earlier on there, and I think you know, that idea that we don't actually have to share every aspect of our life. You know, we say to young people, you know, you wouldn't want to post something online that you wouldn't be happy with your granny to see. I say to colleagues, you wouldn't post anything online that you wouldn't be happy with the Northern Ireland Social Care Council reviewing. You don't have to share every aspect of your life. And that goes across then into the interpersonal relationships that we have. That idea of you don't have to live everybody's life together through the technology at all times. You don't have to share your location with everybody. They don't need to know where you are and what you're doing every hour of the day, because there is a pressure on that.
Big time.
And I think we can take a lot of the pressure off ourselves by just asking the question, do I really need to do this? So, within the context of your relationships, within the context of your friendships, to be able to have time for yourself and not have that, okay, so this is where I am now. I need to check in. I need to share. I need to show where I am, what I'm doing. Live in the moment yourself.
Absolutely. And I suppose for any students who are kind of on with us at the minute, in terms of support, I just want to kind of put up some support helplines here. So at Queen's we have a system called Report Support, and that's for students to kind of go in and report any concerns they have. So that can be online or it can be kind of direct kind of contact. That's around bullying and harassment. If you go to the website as well, you'll see loads of support information, loads of support pages, and helplines, telephone numbers as well. So there's loads of information on there for students. And magically, here's the support helplines. Okay, students can also kind of go through our student wellbeing team as well if you've been impacted by anything today that we've been talking about. And certainly, the link between mental health and kind of online kindness, is kind of very evident. I just want to thank the panel. I think this has been an excellent discussion. As far as I know, this has been recorded, so this will be open for all kind of students. I want to finish as well. So Annette has Little Penny Thoughts, her website, and
that's right.
One for today, already prepared.
Yes, so today's quote, and this wasn't pre-planned, it's just part of the wee calendar here. And the 19th of May, kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echo is truly endless.
Absolutely perfect.
That's today's quote, so it's very fitting. So no matter how small or large your act of kindness can be, there can be a massive ripple effect, and that's important to remember. It doesn't take big grand gestures to be kind. It's just the small things, a simple smile or can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And that's a brilliant way to finish. Thank you very much, Annette. Thanks to Matthew as well, and thanks to Steve. And thanks also to your audience as well, who've been kind of listening in. And hopefully everyone has a good day and is very kind as well when they're online.
Totally. And if you want to laugh, I've also just realized I'm wearing the same t-shirt as I was in the wee promo photo.
There we go. Deadly.
So you have one for every day of the week.
That's it.
You're being consistent.
Thanks for being here, guys. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.